Okay, so in this video, we're going to talk about order of operations. And we kind of remember those things as, we can either think of PEMDAS. I know some people have been saying PEMDAS, but I say PEMDAS because it's AS at the end. And PEMDAS doesn't sound like that to me. But, and a lot of people I hear say, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Those different things can help you kind of remember, but we remember all these things. We remember the PEMDAS and we remember the please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, but we don't always remember what everything stands for, which is the whole point of learning these things in the first place. So we're going to review the order of operations. And I've set mine up as this, the kind of like vertically, just because to me this is a little bit more clear, where you're doing everything in separate steps, okay? So in our first step, you're going to check your problem and say, well, are there any parentheses or any type of grouping things? I mean, you could be talking about brackets, which are these little things. You could be talking about parentheses. I mean, there's all sorts of different kinds of grouping. So make sure that parentheses and all types of grouping things go together in that same step. Okay, so that is what your first step would be. The second step is after you've tackled all your parentheses, you're going to go through and you're going to check for exponents or powers. Okay, so if you see something raised to the power of 2, you're going to have to check through and go through those exponents and solve those out. Once you have done parentheses and you've done exponents, then you're going to get to multiplication and division. Now, a lot of people are under the impression you have to do multiplication before you divide. This is not true. You've just got to go look at your problem from left to right, and that's why I've made this arrow from left to right. You've just got to go from left to right, and whatever you see in order from left to right, that's what you do. Okay, multiplication and division are the same step. Whatever you see from left to right, that's how you do it. Okay, and the same thing with addition and subtraction. Again, they're in the same step. You're just looking at them from left to right. Okay, so just make sure that you are clear of that, because we get a lot of people who want to multiply before dividing, a lot of people who want to add before subtracting, and you don't have to. You can do all that in one step. You just got to go from left to right. That's the important part, okay? So let's look through a few problems and put these things to practice. Here I've written out some examples, and we're using a lot of fractions because nobody likes fractions and we need to practice with them. So let's look at A here. The first thing I want to do is look at my parentheses. Remember, if you look at your order of operations up here, our first thing is parentheses. And we don't see any exponents, so we're not going to have to worry about that after this. But the first thing we want to do is conquer those parentheses. So let's do everything kind of together in one fair swoop. If I have 3.5 plus 1.5, that's the first thing I've got to do. Well, 3.5 plus 1, or plus 1/2, not 1.5. 3.5 plus 1/2 is going to bring you up to just 4. Okay, we're going to be multiplying 4 times whatever this mess is. Now remember, this is division. If you think of this guy over here, this 14, think of it as over 1. It's going to make things a lot easier on you. So we're still multiplying this, and I'm still going to use parentheses for right now because we haven't cleared that up yet. We cleared up the first one. We have not cleared up the second one. It's going to take us another step or two to finish that up. So you're going to leave your first fraction the same. Remember, this is dividing. So when we divide, what we have to do is change it to a multiplication problem. So we're going to have 7/8, and we're going to multiply it by the reciprocal of 14 over 1. So we're going to change it to 1 over 14 instead. Okay, in this case, I am actually able to cross-cancel some. I know that 7 goes into 14 and 7 goes into itself. 7 goes into itself 1 time and goes into 14 2 times. So I am going to rewrite this guy again 4 times, and I'm going to go ahead and multiply this in that same step. 1 times 1 gives me 1. 8 times 2 gives me 16. Okay. Now, my next thing here is I want to multiply. I've conquered all my parentheses. We established that we didn't have any exponents that we needed to mess with. So my next thing here is to conquer my multiplication and division. However, all I have is multiplication. I don't have to worry about division. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to say, think of this as 4 over 1. When you multiply fractions, you can just multiply across the top and across the bottom, and then simplify, or you can, just like we did up here, cross cancel. I know that 4 goes into 4 and 16. 4 goes into itself once and into 16 4 times. So really, once I've multiplied, I have 1 times 1 gives me 1. 1 times 4 gives me 4. And I'm done. Okay. And I know I did several different things like in my head as I was working, but I talked through them. Guys, if I were to give you a problem, this is all you have to show me. You can do scratch work on another piece of paper, do stuff like this, but I need you to be working them out this way so that I can see your work. Because when we start just kind of doing whatever's in the parentheses of this one over on one side of the paper and do the parentheses of the second one somewhere on the other side of the paper, it gets all confusing and jumbled, and it's hard for me to read that. So I need you guys to try to keep everything together in one thing, just like I have done here. And try to start getting the habit of that now, because guys, I'm telling you, when you get to more advanced math, when you, especially, you hit high school, they're going to expect you to be doing this already, okay? Because it's expected of you. That's the way that we work math. And I know that it's a transition going from 5th grade into 6th grade, and we're doing it this way instead of working things out sideways and all sorts of crazy stuff like that. But this is the way we need to be working math, is try to work it down step by step, and working down, not across the page, okay? Here in problem B, again, we've got to look at parentheses as our first thing. So if we've got parentheses, which we do, I've got to tackle this stuff inside of the parentheses before I can do anything else. So I am going to leave everything else the same. I'm going to say I've still got 4, and I'm dividing it by whatever that mess is in that parentheses. Now, when I am subtracting fractions, I've got to get a common denominator. So in order to do that, I have a denominator of 8 and a denominator of 4. I can find my least common multiple of 8 and 4, and that's going to give me my the best denominator to use for this, the least common denominator. So my least common multiple, and if you guys need to list them out somewhere on the scratch paper or on the side of the problem somewhere, that's fine. But my least common multiple of 8 and 4 is just going to be 8, because I can multiply 4 times 2, and that will give me what I need. If I multiply 4 times 2, I've also got to multiply my top number by 2. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick, and I'm going to leave my parentheses in here because I'm going to need this extra step here. 3 times 2 gives me 6. 4 times 2 gives me 8. And I'm going to just continue writing everything out. 6 times 1/4. Okay, now I've got 4. And I'm saying this is divided by this mess. So 7 minus 6 gives me 1, and I leave the 8. So I have cleaned up my parentheses. Alright, now I'm going to look back up here. My next thing I got to do is exponents. I do not see any exponents, so I'm not going to have to worry about it. My next thing is multiplication and division as I see it from left to right. So the first thing I see here is I see some division. And if you need to mark it out, if you need to be like, okay, well, what are the things I'm going to have to be tackling in this step? Well, I've got to tackle my division and multiplication. I've got division there and I've got multiplication here. If you need to outline it and say, okay, well, these are the 2 things I'm focusing on in this step, then do it. It's not a big deal. Just do it. I mean, it's your paper and it's your work. As long as I can read it, there's no problem with you doing extra things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite 4 as 4 over 1. In this division problem, remember when we do division, we say multiplied by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 1/8 is 8 over 1. And I'm going to continue to just write out the rest of this. I know I now have to do 6 times 1/4. I can imagine it as, and if I need to, I can rewrite this. I know 6 is the same thing as 6 over 1. Here. Multiply this out. 4 times 8 gives me 32 over 1. plus 6 times 1 gives you 6 over 1 times 4 gives you 4. And you get 32 plus 6 over 4. You can reduce. 2 goes into both of them. So you would end up with 3/2, which you can write over here. Alright, so your last thing is you've got to add these fractions. So think about 32 as the same thing as 32 over 1. Then you've got to multiply it and get a common denominator. Multiply it by 2 on the bottom and the top. 32 times 2 is going to give you 64. 1 times 2 is going to give you 2. Plus 3 over 2. This is all going to give you 67 over 2, which then you can change into a mixed number. 2 goes into 6 3 times. Bring the 7 down. 2 goes into 7 3 times again. You get 1 left over. So this is actually 33. I'm running out of room, but 33, and we have 1 out of 2 left over. So you get 33 and 1/2. Okay. So I hope this helps. Good luck.